Well, hello, Internet. I am back today to talk about another Shudder horror film. I know I've done a lot of these, but I really like Shudder as a streaming service, and I think they provide a lot of great horror films. This film I'm talking about today is one that just got uploaded recently. I'd heard absolutely nothing about it, but it's one of those films where you see the poster, it looks amazing, you click it, and it turns out that it's a really great film. And the movie I'm talking about today is called The Last Matinee. Last Matinee is directed by Maximiliano Contenti. On a stormy night in Montevideo, an engineering student named Anna takes over the duties of her father, a projectionist at a declining movie theater. Due to his ill health, but unbeknownst to her, the audience watching the film that she's running starts being murdered by a crazed killer. So this is something that we've seen before in films, and specifically in giallo films, and this is clearly a heavy-handed homage to giallo Italian horror films. You have a gloved killer who's going through a specific environment. We do not see his face until probably the last 20 minutes of the film. We're really not given any sort of information in there. Even in the theater, when they're walking up the steps, you see a huge Dario Argento opera poster, and I'm a huge fan of Italian horror films. There's something so unique and interesting to the way they're shot, the color temperature of the films, the vibrant neon colors, and this movie has phenomenal atmosphere. It is entirely in Spanish. It's wonderfully acted. I really liked all the characters. There's enough build up at the beginning of the film that it really gets you into the mindset of these characters and where they're all from before they start getting picked off one by one, which normally in slasher films, that's my biggest qualm, is when characters don't seem to have too much development. But the director of this really spends a lot of time with each group of characters that's in this theater, so that when they do start getting picked off one by one, it makes it a little bit more impactful. The first thing I want to talk about is the cinematography. This movie is shot beautifully. There's a lot of neon colors. Being in a movie theater, they create this atmosphere, kind of closed off, but still expansive in a way. The theater that they're actually in is relatively large, which gives the killer enough space to navigate around, and because it's a later showtime in the evening, it's a pretty scarce audience, so it's not like they're packed in like sardines where if someone was trying to kill people in a movie theater, obviously it would become very difficult. But because it's so expansive and the director spends time introducing you to these characters in the spots in the theater that they're at, it really gives you that sense of suspense and dread as to, like, if someone's watching a film, they're not necessarily going to be paying attention to what's going on. And even like the projection booth and the amount of attention to detail that's there, and you have the supervisor of the movie theater who's like this kind of deadbeat guy who's an asshole navigating his way through the theater and not really doing his job. You have this group of kids who snuck in late at night and they're drunk and they don't think anyone cares. You have this elderly homeless man who's in there, fights with the supervisor, and the supervisor just lets him stay. You have this elderly man, this couple that's out on a date, sits alone, and then obviously you have our lead character, Anna, who's the projectionist. And you have this little kid. You don't know much information about him, but he snuck into the theater, hiding under the seats, watching the movies throughout the day. And they start getting picked off one by one in a very giallo style. Next thing I want to talk about are the effects in this movie. You can tell that it's kind of a mixture of practical with computer-generated effects, and it is grisly. There is a couple of kills in this movie that like had me cringing. Just very intense, brutal, disgusting. It's incredibly bloody. This killer likes to mess with people's eyeballs, which is eye stuff in horror is something that's always made me very uncomfortable, and this movie made me very uncomfortable in the best way, but it also made me laugh quite a bit. It had that similar quality to, like I said, an Argento film, that all his films, although they can be very dark, they all have this lighthearted tone at moments, and this movie does a great job at that. There's a nice balance of jumping between these characters, having these really fantastic comedic moments. Yeah, there's this one scene in the movie that this kill is paralleled with this guy orgasming in the theater, and the cinematography is really well executed to where there's this comedic punch paralleled with this really disturbing act of violence happening on screen, and it challenges you as an audience member to like, am I gonna laugh at this? Should I be laughing at this? Like when horror films push the envelope as far as making you feel uncomfortable and the things that they'll do to make you feel uncomfortable, as long as there's an artistic vision behind it and a reason for it to happen. Like I said, the performances are really great. I think the strongest performance in the film is our lead character, Anna. She really is dedicated to the performance. She really kind of coasts the movie along. Everyone else in the film does a good job. I think everyone plays into their exaggerated caricature pretty well and creates this cast of characters just like other Italian giallo films or just horror slashers in general. You have these characters with all very distinctive personas so that when you jump back and forth, you feel like you actually give a shit about the characters and want to know what's going to happen to them, compared to some of these 80s dumped on video slashers that are just like, hey, here's a group of kids, they're going to die. Our killer has an ominous look to him. Nothing super specific other than he wears a raincoat and carries a briefcase around and has this big jar filled with liquid that comes into play throughout the film. He is very menacing and disgusting looking, and when we're given glimpses into his face, like the very first shot of the film is him in his car, and you're just seeing him eat what appears to be olives out of this jar of gross liquid, and his teeth are really disgusting and his face just looks really menacing. And as he's navigating his way into the theater, you just get that idea of like, well, we know where this is gonna go. Like I said, his kills are pretty brutal, and because he doesn't speak much and he's very quiet, it provides that extra level of like, what is this guy capable of? And so when the kills get more and more brutal, it just kind of ramps up through the film and you never really know what's gonna happen. Similarly to a lot of 80s horror films, the film has an incredible techno, like synth score that really accompanies the overall mood and tone of the film. I'm a big fan of like Carpenter-Esque soundtracks. I love anything that's like synthwave, and this movie nails that vibe so well. And I just was like, the soundtrack kept kicking in and I was so excited every time a new cut from the soundtrack would play. And it was just a fun experience. And sometimes with these type of movies, that's what you want. You want to sit down, relax, and watch a super entertaining homage to a great era in filmmaking. And that's what The Last Matinee was. It was a great homage to an incredible time in filmmaking history. It homaged respectfully and did its own thing, which I really appreciate. So have you seen The Last Matinee yet? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was a really fun and entertaining time. And I'm really glad that I saw it. And I'm looking forward to watching more films on Shudder this year. They always provide really great material and give artists a platform that not a lot of other film streaming services would allow, other than Amazon, who will literally dump any crap imaginable on there. Like, how many movies about shark, octopus, tarantulas versus tornado water monsters can there be? The answer is a lot. As always, if you'd like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. And as always, internet, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.